Let's address the elephant in the room. This $6 camera, which I have now taken apart and modified and put a different lens on, is not a 16 megapixel camera, and it doesn't shoot in 1080p, but it puts out that information. So how does it do it? Well, this is my guess. I'm not an expert in this technology, but when I look at the size of the sensor, there's no way it's a 16 megapixel. For perspective, the sensor, which I can show on the screen from a photo, compared to my Lumix G7, if I can take it apart, this is a 16 megapixel sensor. Now this is a larger one. They come in smaller form factors, even down to like 7.7 millimeters in diagonal, but the sensor in this camera is only 3.7 millimeters diagonally, and it is just too small to be able to capture the data it needs for it to be a 16 megapixel camera. So if you want to see me tear down the $6 camera, stick around because that's what's coming next. I'm back with Amazon's cheapest camera. Remember, I paid $6.20 for this, and I've decided I'm gonna modify it to take a better lens. I purchased an adapter kit for, I think this was $6. Yeah, so this is just a threaded adapter kit for a C-mount lens, and then I found a nice C-mount lens, a vintage lens, for $10 on eBay. So for a total cost of like $22, I'm gonna have a camera that has an interchangeable lens. So let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and take it apart and just kind of peek around now. Yeah, so with how cheap this thing feels, I would have expected it to be kind of just like a pop together kind of deal, or maybe glued together, but there's actual hardware here. So I could break this thing, but I'm optimistic. Boom, look at that. That little guy's a 16 megapixel lens slash sensor. I think that it's all combined. I'm gonna have to figure out how to take this thing apart. This is great. So it's screwed, this camera plate, which is really just a plastic housing for what's likely a sensor and lens combo. It's screwed in there, so it's gonna be really easy to modify this. In fact, I'll give it a whack now and see what that gets us. Aha, look at that. So this whole thing is just a piece of plastic housing, and then opens up the camera there. So if I look at the size of the C-mount adapter, it like almost fits perfect in there. All right, guys, things have developed. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the lens out, the whole ribbon, and I'm trying to figure out what the manufacturer of this is, because I'm pretty confident this is not a 16 megapixel sensor. I'm pretty sure that it's something much smaller, and then the camera's just upsizing it and writing a fake EXF file or whatever, just manipulating what this sensor's pulling in. So see, I just popped up the ribbon, but maybe it's glued. Come on, little guy. Wow, it's really in there. Oh, I think I got it. I think it was maybe partially glued in. Okay, so this is it right here. Look at that little guy. It reads on the back, XHBJJ. All right, I'm gonna look that up. I am fairly certain that this is not a 16 megapixel sensor, but I'm not sure if it's a 0.3 or a 1.0 megapixel sensor. It's hard to tell. Now, the video actually had some potential. I think that the biggest downside is that, one, it's rescaling a very small sensor into something that's high def. But two, it's just not in focus. So I'm gonna go ahead and modify this thing to be interchangeable C-mount lenses. And to do that, I'm going to take the lens off of this sensor and then permanently glue it to the board, and then modify the camera case so that it can accept the CCTV or C-mount lenses. And I'm not really sure the optimal lens. I mean, I've got a 12 millimeter on the way, but maybe something like a 4 or an 8 would be better, and those are available. So since this sensor is so small, I can even get a variable zoom. You know that you're doing something sketchy if you're working on a camera with a pair of large pliers. So it's the tool I had for the job. I need to twist this thing off, and I'm worried that it's a little bit too tightly glued on there. So okay, I'm marring this thing up. Come on. I'm gonna have to get the heat gun out. You little turd. They definitely glued this thing in there. Alright, I think I'm gonna have to figure out a different tool.
A few moments later.
Got the thing off, and now I'm down to just the sensor. I want to give us some semblance of scale. I'm gonna have to take a photo with my phone because this is so tiny. It is the tiniest little speck there. Look at that, it's so tiny. So I now have something to work from. I'm gonna take a photo of it, scale it out, and then come up with a plan to glue this thing to the board, and yeah, we'll see where this goes. All right, I'm back. So eventually this is gonna have to be like 12, 13 millimeters from the back plate here. So measuring device. Yeah, we might be like right on the money. All right, one of my least favorite things to do is put these ribbon cables in. Ooh, but it looks like it found its spot pretty easily. Let's go. While we see if it works. We're gonna be raw dogging a sensor here. Oh, you know what? I wonder if it's getting a lot of red. It's possible I took the infrared filter off of this thing. Okay, so it powers on. It's doing something. And I suppose next is to mount the lens in there. Unfortunately, I'm missing some very funny / sketchy video of me making this mount fit. And it's a bummer because I was making a lathe out of a drill. So sadly, you're going to have to use your imagination on that. And also, I took apart an old cell phone to harvest an IR filter. So wherever that is in video land, sorry you don't get to see it. Here's the close-up of the camera, $6.20 camera. I went ahead and got the C-mount in there, got our sensor. Next, I have to put the IR glass in, and then we're gonna slap a lens on this bad boy. Okay, I wanted to get a close-up on this, but this is from the old cell phone. That's the IR filter in its shroud. I'm gonna glue that into place and then glue it over our sensor. And here is the camera close-up, just the sensor. That was before putting the IR filter from the cell phone on it. And here is the sensor covered by that IR filter. So I got two lenses that I tried out on this camera, the TV lens and the Computar lens. And the end of the day, the Computar was like very much a close-up lens. I could not get it to work at any type of distance. I really struggled with it. But you can see there's some cool photos. Like that's my palm. And the amount of detail and quality seems pretty good. It is soft still in some regards. That's some lavender that you're looking at from the house. But I thought that was kind of neat. And then we switch over to the TV lens, 12.5 millimeter. And I feel like the quality here really did step up the camera. And again, it's going to be soft because it's upsizing that little tiny sensor. But the optics really are improved. And there's a little bit of a ethereal feel because of just the characteristics of the lenses that I'm using. And here's a video. The image stabilization is pretty rough given the focal distance, but overall quality seems to have improved. But was it worth my time? I don't know. Comment down below on which one you like more.